So welcome to Unity of Palm Harbor. Everyone who's here, whether you're brand new today or you're an old timer with us. If you've never been here before, I invite you to sign the guest book out in the bookstore/cafe, and then you can receive our newsletter and know the different events that are happening here. So can you imagine a minister that listens to Spirit? And this morning, what came through was, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And I went, yo, that's not unity. What are we doing? And then the message was deeper. Someone here needs to hear today that we're going to be all right. No matter what is going on in the outer world, we are going to be all right. So I am going to read some of this to you, and I'm going to share with you what came forward for me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Now here's the kicker. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And this is the piece that really touched my heart this morning, because our rod, our staff, are those spiritual tools that we all have. That can be meditation. That can be just being quiet, connected to Source, recognizing the oneness of each and every one of us in this beautiful universal flow. It can be taking time out of news, whether you get it on your radio or you get it on your TV. So what came through to me is to share with each one of you, we're going to be all right. We're all going to be all right. Yeah. So this past Wednesday, we had a beautiful new facilitator in our meditation hour. Wednesday starts at 7 till about 8, and her name is Tamara. And I met her because she did a whale meditation at a different location. And I thought, well, I'm kind of tuned into this whale stuff. Let's see what it means. And to me, I understand the whales, how they communicate, how it's about family. What I didn't know is the intuitive part about whales and what they represent. So she took us deeply under with those beautiful bowls and drums and things that she created. And then we actually heard the whale call through part of the meditation. And I went deeply, because I travel. Do y'all travel when you meditate? I go so far, you got to bring me back up out of the water. So I'm in this place, and I can see I'm on the side of a boat. And I'm in the boat, and it's kind of a small boat, and I'm scared. Like I'm asking that question, are we going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? And the big whale came right beside me, and all I saw was her big eye and this dark shape, and it was a connection. And she said, we're all going to be all right. So take what you will from that vision. I'm going to ask you, hold this in your heart, share the joy, the laughter, and when people need a little extra support, be the eyes of God. That all we see in each other is this beautiful spirit, this high consciousness. For we, with our spiritual tools, have the power to walk through that valley of the shadow of death. For we fear no evil, for thou art with me. That inner connection to that God light, our own being, we know how to shine, superstar shine. And with that, welcome to Unity of Palm Harbor. You know, we did that with a group of ministers, not necessarily in school, but just said, what if, like your guest speaker didn't show up or you forgot your talk? I mean, if you just had to pick a subject, how would you do it? So what's today's talk? The power of imagination. And I imagine those who know me a little bit know that I can talk just about anything. And sometimes I have expertise in the subject. They call those subject matter experts. So officially, I'm a SME sometimes. But thank you, Van. That was absolutely lovely. Thank you. What we believe to be true is true for us. How simple does that sound? What we believe to be true is true for us. We come in this world with lots of influences. Our parents, our school teachers, our friends, social media today pays very well for influencers. And these influencers came no charge. And sometimes we resonated and we took in what they said and how they behaved, and we took that on because that was the family way. That was the societal norm. That was culturally the way in our family. And then, as I am now teaching one of our Unity classes online, we begin to question. We reach that place in our life where everything that was told to us by people that deeply influenced us, people we may have loved, and come on, face it, some people tell us stuff that we really don't like, and it stays with us. It could be a lesson to learn. It could be a new approach to something. When they do these advertisements that make you think, and they have a jingle that stays in your mind. What do they call that when it goes over and over? Earworms. Some of these beautiful jingles that just stay with us, and you're like, oh my God, stop. I'm ready for the next. And we know we have that power within us too, to shift our thoughts. That's where our beautiful imagination comes in. That power to shift our way of thinking. Now, some of us have some really core, deep, generational lineage thoughts. And this is being proven now through scientific evidence. So when that lineage of the family comes down and you're like, this is the way Grandma says we always did it, or your favorite aunt, or your not so favorite aunt, you get the opportunity to say, but is this true for me? For the thoughts we think become our belief system. The thoughts we think, we become meaning makers. What does that mean? I was talking recently with someone who said, so we, in my church, former church, did the Apostles' Creed. And the denomination she was talking about was not Catholic. And I thought, well, the church that I grew up in also did the Apostles' Creed. And I remember thinking, in my immature thoughts at the time, but I thought, why are we talking about the union of saints? We don't talk about saints in this denomination. I think saints are a beautiful thing. I think guardian angels are a beautiful thing. But it wasn't a practice. So sometimes I think we take a doctrine, whether we develop it as our own, or we just become rote in the way we are speaking, in the way that we are thinking, until we don't. Until using the power of our own imagination, we begin to look a little closely at the words we are reading, at the information bombarding us, the music we listen to, and we begin to say, is this true to and for me? Is this how I want to be represented in the world? Is this how I want to show up in the world? For right now, there's a lot of scuttle going on, and there's a lot of fear going on. And I read through some of the statistics about how churches have changed form dramatically since COVID. And some of these churches have reduced their attendance as much as 45 to 50%. Our own church gathering here, I would surmise, is about 80% different than before COVID. That's huge. Newcomers, people new to the Unity message, people who want something that is a connection. Whether you live in the neighborhood or within 20 miles, or your friend comes here, or there's a message that you've heard and you're like, what is this Unity all about? It's not exactly the same as any other new thought, but we do talk often in relationship to the 12 disciples. Each one has a power associated with it. Now, I shared this recently with a group of ladies, and I said, if we were to look at the 12 powers of unity, could there be anything beyond that? Imagination's a really good one. Everything we are looking at started in someone's imagination. Whether it's the paint on the walls, the structure of the sanctuary, or the format of how we do Sunday morning. And then when I read to you from the Bible passage, someone was reflecting upon life and wrote the words in exactly the way they wrote them. What do you do in your life to support yourself on this journey? Where is the power of your imagination? Because you can create or destroy at any time. You can destroy old ways of thinking that no longer serve you, and you can create new ways of a belief system because you've met new friends. You've been exposed to new ideas. You've had the best food ever, and you never would have had that in your mouth before. We have so many things in our life that we get to make the decision of what is going to be attracting us to develop further our own path. So I'm going to mention someone to you, and I bet most of you know who this is. In the 5th century, Siddhartha Gautama, a very wealthy prince, lived in his guarded palace, and everything was of great beauty. He had everything he could imagine. Life was grand, plush and grand. He convinced one of his guards one day to allow him to travel on the road just outside of his grand palace. And he came upon a very old man. And he came upon a very sick man. And then he came upon a corpse being carried to cremation and a monk meditating under a tree. Do you know who this is? Who is this? Buddha. And Buddha is a term that means awakening, enlightenment. We are each every day subjected to, and we take that into our minds through the power of imagination. And for Buddha, he created the middle way. Not to be attached. Doesn't mean you don't care and love about people, but some of us, not to mention any control fanatics, who like to know the outcome of what they're creating, we might really want it to look like this. And when it looks like something different, how do we respond? Some of us, as we're learning in our emotional maturity, may take a breath and say, okay, it didn't look like I thought, but look what was created from this. And those who are really attached to the outcome, you're probably not very happy because it didn't happen your way. But if you can take that breath, you've begun the little seed journey, you've planted it, you know what it looks like. Do you? Do you know what the long-term effects look like? Buddha didn't know, but he went for this middle way to imagine a life of less suffering. How can we imagine for ourselves and the people around us a life of less suffering? So my buddy Edwin Gaines, my beautiful prosperity teacher, says this. When I first started my spiritual journey, I was looking around for the perfect guru who would smack me on the head with a holy stick so that I would be enlightened once and for all. Anybody done that? Anybody? Was it the Lion King? Yeah? And what's the guy's name who's got the stick? Oh my gosh, and he bops him on the head more than once because he doesn't get it. Would it be so easy? Could it be so easy? Edwin says this, I was so disappointed when I finally realized that exploring my spirituality and deepening my faith was something I had to do by myself, and that there was no once and for all about it. Instead, it is a lifelong journey, and how you use the power of imagination to create the world that you live in, and it's not based on a one-time event. Instead, it is ongoing, everyday process, and it requires discipline. Discipline. Those of us who like to live outside of the box, we don't like discipline. And what do you think of when I say the word discipline? Spanking? Oh, I'm so not going to reply to that. Well, I wasn't going to go there. This is a church. We can talk about that in counseling. But when you think of discipline, do we think about inline structure, rigidity, rules? And then, who said scripture? Yeah, seriously. Devotion. Oh, that was a really good one. Now you're hitting where Edwene went. She said, do you know the inner Latin word for discipline is also for disciple, which is a pupil, a student of life. So if we are on the path, and we all are on the journey of life, and we are calling for ourselves to be disciplined, it would be that we are the students, the pupils of life, which means we are open and curious. When we're walking the path of life, we are open and curious, because if we're shut down, if we know everything, and some of us do, how open and receptive are you to a new idea? Life changes. About the only guarantee we have. When we think we finally got it, and that includes me as a minister, sometimes I'm like, this is finally working in the church, and this is finally working, and I'm so excited I don't have to do this. And then what happens? It changes. I'm like, oh, no. Took 3.5 years to get here. Well, you know what? It's a lifelong journey. It's going to take 3.5 more. And then 3.5 more of that. Because new people are going to come in, and new ideas are going to come in, and new leaders are going to come in. And then the world's going to show up. The audacity. So the power of our imagination is that place that we get to go to, that we examine first what I will call our divine thoughts. If we are never disconnected from the divine, and you have that little nudge, and it won't let go of you, there is something for you to look at, something to examine. And it might truly be that you write. Are you that person? Do you need to write it down? Do you need to see a pathway? Or maybe you need to listen to music and get in that zone, or go play with the whales, or whatever your thing is, so that you can take that thought and begin to imagine what it's going to look like. Whether you're on a stage and speaking, whether you're teaching a class, whether your thing, as I am learning in my very novice attempts, watercolor little flowers. Whatever your thing is in life. Thank you to all the people who are out there in the garden this past weekend, ridding us of the invasive plants, so that more beauty and life and organic nature can shine through. I think that's true of us. As we begin to release that crusty old that no longer serves us, that beautiful, connected, organic spirit is going to show up. And it might even surprise us. It might even surprise us. Edwene told me the very first time I met her, and I may have shared this, I was at a different Unity church than the one I eventually attended for 30 years, and my little girl was about 1 year old. And my mom was studying to be a minister, and she was working with this church. So we get to this church, and we're all sitting in the front row, and have you ever witnessed a Unity baptism? They are so sweet. It's done with rose petals. Because you know, we don't believe in original sin, we believe in original blessing. So usually the minister stands with the baby, or the family does, and then sprinkles rose petals and says something so beautiful we all cry. So Edwene Gaines was the guest speaker that day. And when she came out on that stage in her flowing robes, my imagination had a wonderful time. And she said, I am a woman of power. I said, yes, ma'am, you are. I'm in the front row. I thought she was 6'4". Well, if you've ever met her, she's about 5'2". But this presence, this magnificent aura, this energy field, and when she spoke with authority, I was right there with her. Yes, ma'am. Yes, I'm on board. Yes, I believe what you're saying. And then I dared in my own imagination. How many of us do this when we respect, admire, watch somebody and think, could that exist within me? Is there some part of that beautiful message that she's so sure of her connection to the divine? Could that be true for me too? And it took me 35 more years to figure that part out. Going to retreats and spending time with her and traveling to Glastonbury and to Ireland and to Peru. And all that starts with the spark of our imagination, the power of our imagination. If you see something you like in somebody else, is it already within you, or are you developing that to be true for you? For those people that we admire, if you took a list out, and Reverend Marilyn was really good at showing me some of this in a class, if you wrote down the 10 people that have had the most influence in your life, and you look very closely at them, there's something within you that recognizes that of them already within you. Do you think that could be true? Yeah, because we're connecting. We're connecting. When we're reaching out to each other and we don't know each other at all, we're finding a common something. Whether we like Italian food, whether we like food at all, whether we like nature, we're finding that common path. And whatever it is that you like about somebody else, there's some part of that that's already existing within you. That beautiful power of our imagination. So when Edwene tells me to do something, I don't usually ask questions. I just say, yes, ma'am, and go forward. She now resides in beautiful Louisiana, left her home in Mentone, Alabama. But here's something. We can be our own worst critic. When we don't like what we're creating, do you ever have that little voice and it's chomping on you and you're not sure if that's your voice or an outside world voice? Khalil Gibran says this: "For in reverie," I had to look it up, your dream state, "in your imagination, you cannot rise above your achievements nor fall lower than your failures." You cannot rise above your achievements nor fall lower than your failures in your mind. "And take with you all people," he says, "for in adoration you cannot fly higher than their hopes, nor humble yourself lower than their despair. And if you would know God, be not therefore a solver of riddles, rather look about you and you shall see God playing with your children." If there's no place that God is not, with every face you encounter, with every flower that you see, with every occasion, God is already there. If you believe, there is no separation. So rather look about you and you shall see God playing with your children, and look into space, you shall see God walking in the cloud. Outstretching those loving arms in the lightning and the descending rain, you shall see God smiling in flowers, then rising and waving her hands in the trees. Could this be true for you? As you just imagine the world around you. And for some teachings, it's all an imagination anyways. We're just here, traveling through time for a brief period. If we can see God in everything, how much richer would our lives be? If we did not hold anyone outside of that beautiful sphere of God, how much more gentle could we create a life that we want to lead? We know working with spiritual principles that they don't change. We change. So I was recently talking with someone and I said, if we get to that place where the world feels heavy, because that is also in our imagination, our family issues, political issues, dietary issues, health issues, when we get to that place and we just kind of, remember Ursula and the Mermaids? Anybody have grandchildren, children, you had to watch it? And she took that big, what is the staff called? Trident? It's called Trident? So she takes that big, and she zaps some more people. They get little like this. Because they don't believe in themselves anymore. That power of imagination is so strong that you can be Edwene Gaines at 5'3", or you could be that little mer person who's all shriveled and staid. And what my suggestion is, when we feel that way and we're not feeling great about ourselves, Get up. Get up and move. Take a walk in nature. Do something different. Do not be stagnant. Do not stay in that little crumbled place because what are you attracting in? More. And if you walk in nature and you take a breath and you watch a hawk fly over, what are you creating more of? Peace, space, appreciation. And that will, love. Love's all there is, oneness. Yes. So that God of our being, that kingdom of heaven within, if you had one word and it starts with an L, what is it? Love. The power of our imagination is all about loving ourselves. And when we start there, we can begin to see and be the love for each other. Yes, the love for each other. And I just love that I have some really strong teachers that have to take those holy sticks and knock me upside the head to teach me that. Some of us are stubborn in our little worldly ways. So my intention when I am here on Sunday mornings and when I teach classes is just to open up another portal, another way for you to examine whatever my choice of words are, and for you to take in what resonates with you, because not everything I say up here will resonate with you. And you might go out and do some exploring and say, Reverend Tracey, have you ever seen this or read this or heard this? And let's play in our imaginations together. For when we're in the midst of any big problem, even Einstein said you can't be a solver of a problem from in the same place where the problem was created. We have to step outside. Take a breath. Be centered. Be focused. Recognize that beautiful kingdom of heaven within. Luke 18:15. And they brought unto him also infants, that he would touch them. But when his disciples saw it, they rebuked him. And Jesus called unto them the disciples and said, Suffer little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of God. And verily I say unto you, whoever shall not receive the kingdom of God as a little child shall not enter the gates of heaven. Now that sounds kind of heavy. I said, what does that mean? Hello? Speak to me, God. What does that mean? Suffer unto me the little children actually means to bring them unto you. What is the children? It's our imagination. It's our little child. It's our innocence. It's our before we were tainted. How would that feel to walk in that beautiful place that you can create anything through your mind, through your imagination, because what is that kingdom of heaven within? That connection to the divine. You can create anything through your beliefs. And so it is. Amen.